First one. Hey everybody, TBC here. Today is the next of my videos in my week-long Velious extravaganza, and today we're going to be looking at the geography and the zones that you can expect to see in Velious. Before we get into it, I just want to give a quick shout out to our channel members. Thank you so much for your continued support. It's very much appreciated. Information how to become a member down on the bottom below. Also, all the great ways to help support is by hitting that like button and of course subscribing so you can find out when my next video comes out. So Velious is finally upon us, and in some ways it's very different from Kunark. In some ways very same. You know, the zones for the most part are absolutely massive, very similar to Kunark. They take a long time to run through, but we trade the kind of greens and the browns for the most part to the whites and greys of the ice continent of Velious. So let's get right on into it. So before we look at Velious, you gotta know how to get there, and there's a few ways. You can use the translocator in North Row that you can find right on this dock. That will take you to Ice-clad Ocean. Of course, you can port as well, and we'll go through those. The ports you're looking at are Great Divide, Cobalt Scar, and Awakening Lands. So if you take the translocator, it puts you right here in Ice-clad Ocean, just past the fingers, and this is your welcome to the continent of Velious. And straight away it's immediately different than what we've been seeing in Kunark. You are struck by just how bright it kind of is and can be, and get used to it. This is a very bright expansion on the outdoor zones. And then you come across this tower, which is probably one of the best looking towers in the game at this point. It's very different than like the square box of Cairns, but it kind of serves a similar function, being a lower level dungeon. And this is the Tower of Frozen Shadow, an excellent dungeon that I certainly recommend that you check out. Cannot be an easy dungeon sometimes when you're doing this on low level characters. The floors get progressively harder and you need keys to be able to pass through them. So if you come in here, come with a very committed group, because it can be very challenging, to be honest. Some of the floors are easier than others, some are more mazy than others, some are more open than others, but it's a pretty fun zone just to kind of tackle through. Very kind of old school dungeon crawl feeling, and a lot of variety in the mobs that you will be fighting as well. The map works great for this zone. Everything's kind of separated out in its own. Each of the floors are each separated out in their own area. They're not typically stacked on top of each other on the world map, so it's fairly easy to navigate around once you get your bearings. Of course, in Velious, traps become much more prevalent. These traps actually do things, as opposed to the traps, say, in like Sol B, which are just more there for show. And yeah, there you go. You can yeah, there's a trap right there that you can see. Normally that will trigger, and it typically have some kind of bad effect, so be mindful of them. And what you want to do, you want to look around and you'll see and try and find where the next teleportation is, and it's these kind of mirrors. Like I said, some of the floors are better than others. This one's one of my favourite floors. It's more open than some of them, which are corridors. Like this is like the library, and again you click the mirror and you move on. And this one, yeah, it's one of those like maze corridor ones. Yeah, not one of my favorites, but like, so you can use your map, you can skip through, but remember you do need keys to be able to do this, and there's mobs that you need to kill. And I'll probably do a zone guide on this zone. It is a fun one, and not too many people typically come here, and it's a zone which is unfortunately rather underutilized, very similarly to Crystal Caverns on a TLP. But there's interesting stuff to see here as well, like this room. Not too sure what's kind of going on here. Looks like some kind of meeting is happening or ceremony. Yeah, it's an interesting zone. Check it out. So after departing Tower of Frozen Shadow, there really isn't much more to Iceclad. It's very much a run through zone. The only thing really people come here for is Lodazol, which drops like a pretty nice shield, but it's kind of permacamp by bots, as you can imagine. And the only other reason people tend to come here is for questing. If you're doing things like the shawl or the ring, you probably need to spend some time in this zone. Other than that, there's the kind of usual alt forts and whatnot, and you will quickly zone into Eastern Wastes. And here we are, this is now Eastern Wastes. This is a really kind of bigger zone. You've kind of got like the Orc Fortress down here. You've got a zone to Sleeper's Tomb, you've got a zone to Great Divide, and you have a zone to Kael Drakel. So this is a zone you're spending a lot of time in. It's mostly safe to run around. Be mindful near Kael. There are some traps that will spawn a horde of very angry giants at you if you are KOS to them, so be careful. They can take out the unsuspecting traveller around like kind of this area to Kael. Alright, Great Divide, it's one of the primary zones that you'll be spending time in because you've got Thurgadin to the north, the Ring War happens here, you've got Velkator's Labyrinth in the south, and yeah, it's one of the main ports into the continent at Great Divide. Again, the port in not 100% safe. Those big giant worms do roam there, and if you AFK to the port in, then there's a good chance that you will get it. Other than that, you can find the usual dwarves roaming around, giant worms roaming around, and some kind of like Kodiak things, but that's pretty much all there is for this zone. If you're looking at the map because you want to go to Plane of Mischief, ignore it. It is wrong. It does not work. The only way to get into Plane of Mischief is through Temple of Vishan until a later expansion, and there's your porting right there, and that's where you appear. But like I said, be mindful, don't AFK there, worms can path. And then in the southwest you've got Velkator's Labyrinth, and it does to a degree live up to its name. It's a little bit of a maze if you are not used to it, and it's probably more daunting than it actually really is. It looks worse than it actually really is. The most annoying bit for me is this kind of initial spider area with its slippery platforms. Obviously you can't live in this zone, so you have to go up them, and there are spiders which are invis as well that will jump on you. Sometimes you can get 3 of them. Be very, very careful. Like I said, you can't live. I'm just kind of showing you what it kind of looks like by doing that, and you'll see it goes all the way to the top. There's lots of spiders hanging around, and if you look to the north you can see through to the castle area. You can't, there's no way to get there without going around the huge bit from Upper Dogs, but we're going to sneak over the wall right here, just to show you where Velk spawns inside his little castle. Now this is like the castle camp. It's not hard to get to. Once you got through the maze, you just kind of go through the Fate Wall and through Upper Dogs, and you'll end up here. And down here lies the fabled sorcerer Velkator. Yeah, interesting model. I don't think you see that again in Velious at all. He's got a unique model. That's kind of nice, and he's the only giant here. And these are kind of all his creations and experiments and whatnot. So you see a lot of them have like names like failed experiment and whatnot, a lot of the rare mobs. Just working my way back, this is Upper Dogs, a really nice camp. The only annoying thing is the kobolds usually come in packs and they can heal each other, so make sure you have CC to stop that and a way to stun. Yeah, a lot of people get daunted. I used to be daunted by this in this area in the year 2000, trying to get through. But yeah, it's not actually that bad. Just take your time, don't rush. Easy peasy. Next up, we're back in Eastern Waste. We're gonna go to Kale, but first I just want to show the zoning for Sleeper's Tomb, because I think it's actually one of the cooler zonings in the game as of Velious. It's got this like model of the sleeper, the sleeping dragon. It's kind of ominous, warning you what may lie inside. Yeah, cool. And like I said, Kale is just to the southwest of that. I always thought that the main kind of giant city should have, like, I don't know, a more impressive kind of opening to it than these like little tunnels with little doorways. It doesn't seem very giant city-esque. It seems a bit like, I don't know, buried away and a little bit hidden. It shouldn't be giants. They should be like loud and proud, like they were in Kunark, with the little fortresses everywhere, right in the middle of the zone. Couldn't miss them, but hey ho, there you go, and into Kale we go. Now, Kale is one of those zones that you'll come to a lot. It's primarily east to west, and the mobs on the main east to west corridor are pretty low level. A lot of people use it as their primary bind for melee because it is a city, and Awakening Lands zone line is the best place for it, especially if you're in a guild that's going to be trying to get some of the open world stuff. You want to be close to, say, Tormax or Avatar of War. So yeah, this is a really good place to bind if you are melee for the most part. To the north we've got like the arena, that's where Avatar of War lives, and then to the south, one of the cooler kind of throne rooms in the game today, certainly cooler than say like Nagi's or like Solbi or whatever. Is this throne room for Tormax. A lot of giants in there. Being sure you are prepared. You got to split Tormax out. And then over to the west we come to Awakening Lands, probably the most annoying zone in all of Velious, because it's not barren and icy. Oh no no no, it's lush and green, and where there's lush and green comes trees. Now the Awakening Lands is a port in to Velious. Up in the north edge of the zone is a little nook which holds a port, but this port is definitely one you want to be very wary about using, because nearby there's the port in, and nearby, if you look over there, is a big green dragon that is Wuxi, and you will not have a good day if you zone in and your KOS to Claws of Vishan. She will have you for dinner, and she tends to be up a lot because the loot from Wuxi isn't great. Maybe sometimes it gets killed just as a because it's there, but it's not one of the best. And as you can see, running through this zone, there is trees everywhere. Do not run through here on boxes or with follow, because you will run into a tree for sure and get stuck. And yeah, the tree canopy is, as you can see from up above, very very thick, so that just shows you exactly how many trees are in this zone. And why are there so many trees in the middle of an ice continent? And here you ask, because in the middle of the zone is the plane of growth, and Tuner's influence on the plane of growth is making trees around that zoning grow. And you come to this tower, nowhere near as impressive, say, as a zoning for the Tower of a Frozen Shadow. Kind of looks very Kunarky, to be honest. I think it's pretty much copy and pasted from Kunark, some of those textures. And you click this weird tree, that takes you into the plane of growth. The plane of growth is very much like the devs took the plane of fear, copied and pasted it, put some new textures in, and left a very similar mechanics. There are skips to get to Tuner. You can pop her out and train everything away, but yeah, very annoying zone. And word of warning, you cannot fix that faction at all, ever. So if you're planning on doing those quests, make sure you do them before you kill Tuner. Any mob in that zone. Also off Awakening Lands, in the far northwest corner, is probably my least favourite zone in the expansion. That is Sky Shrine. I have no idea what they were talking about or thinking about when they made this zone. It's crazy. And this is something you will want to come to if you're raiding, because Yellowknight lived in this zone and he dropped some pretty decent loot. The problem is the AOC drops you off right here at the entrance. So what a lot of guilds do is they'll have a mage that's bound in Yellowknight's room or just outside Yellowknight's room, and the first time you do it, they'll run up, they'll bind there, and then you can be coughed every time you do the instance. But yeah, if you're gonna have to run through here, you're gonna have to do it in Viz and hope it doesn't drop, or you have to be on faction, and it's a very annoying, frustrating maze. And the worst part is, even with faction, even with Invis, it takes forever to run through. I mean, I'm doing this sped up here, and I kind of remember the way. I'm going off memory and looking at the map. Certainly Brutal's maps do help kind of get you through this, but you'll see sometimes I turn the wrong way, and there's so many mobs as well. Like I was in a guild that we once cleared through this zone to get to Yellowknight and for faction and stuff, and it must have took 2 hours. It was the biggest waste of time I think I've ever done. And you just kind of, for the most part, following a linear path, to be honest. There's very little interesting to see. Yeah, you got these big rooms with statues in, but you got another big room with a statue in, and another big room with a statue in. There's not a lot unique, and I guess they wanted to create some kind of grandiose dragon zone, but as a city it doesn't work. It's far too big. As a raid zone it doesn't work. It's far too big for what is essentially one mob. It takes way too long. It's just unfortunately badly designed and far too annoying to run through. Like, I'm twist turning myself around like all the time, going, okay, which way do I want to go? Eventually I remember and get to exactly what I wanted to go. I don't necessarily like mind the dragons or the dragon city. I just get very frustrated running through it. It's just repeat rooms, repeat with really nothing. I'd love to know whoever designed this, what their thinking was. Like, was a zone like this in the docket? And this is the interesting bit, because there's portals that you have to follow. There's loads of them around, but if you follow the lines on the map, if you have rules, that will get you where you need to be first time. So you have to kind of stand on those glyphs. Be careful though, because they don't always trigger straight away. Sometimes you've got to move around. Like that time I had to kind of like nudge around a little bit. And there we go, we got through that. And you think, okay, I must surely be at Yellowknight's room now. Oh, no. We got a long way to go, and we've got to click some of these things. And again, annoying to click. You kind of got to be standing in the right spot and trying your best. Eventually you get it. And you think, now, I must be in Yellowknight's lair. Oh, no. No, it's just more corridors and more rooms, filled with worms, filled with drakes. Don't really know what else I can say about it other than, get comfy for 20 minutes and run through. It's just the most pointless part of Velious I think there is, and I absolutely hate it. I don't know if there's any demand or anybody wants to see a run through of what it actually looks like where you go. I mean, I can do it. I just kind of skipped ahead because, frankly, I ran out of things to talk about in Sky Shrine. There's Yellowknight, the big dragon, very easy dragon on the whole. He's not difficult whatsoever. And the portal there will take you back to the entrance. There you go. Sky Shrine, everybody. Next up we have the Cobalt Scar. Now this is a zone that you'll port into. It's a very common zone to port into, and that's about it. There's nothing to say. It's kind of like this icy area, the beach down below. This is where you come in again. It's one of those rings. I think this one's fairly safe. I've never been attacked at this one if I've been AFK. From here, chuck on Lev, otherwise you're in for a very long swim, and we don't want that because that is slow. And the tunnel to Sirens Grotto lies to the northwest, and that's where you'll be spending a lot of time running across, so get used to it. Outside the tunnel to Sirens Grotto there are some mermaids. They can be a little bit annoying, but if you just power through and go into the tunnel without paying them much attention, they should ignore you. And into Sirens Grotto we go. Sirens Grotto, a lot of people are like petrified by this zone or running through it, but it's not that difficult. The main problem with this zone is it's always like full of bots, which is actually helpful because the bots will keep picks open and that'll pick you to the other side. But if you don't want to use the bots, there is the very short run that you can do. I'm just familiarizing myself. Yeah, I need to go through the tunnel right there by the seahorses. You will get a ton of aggro doing this, but if you power through, you can easily outrun it. You jump through to the other side, you come up here, there's a left that you take, and you're at the other side. And that's all I ever do with Sirens Grotto. I don't come here to camp stuff because it's always full of armies of mage bots farming ink. Very annoying. But it does put us in Western Wastes zone again. You're going to be spending a lot of time in. And if you go ahead and kill Yelanak on Vaniki, you can get a port which will take you straight here, right outside the aggro range of Zontalak. Very worth doing if you have the time. It only takes 2 characters and 2 mercs. There's 2 zones in Western Wastes. That is a Temple of Vishan and to a Dragon Necropolis. Now, this zone during Velious is not safe to run through. There's a whole lot of mobs and a whole lot of dragons milling around that will eat you up very, very quickly if you are not prepared. So have Lev, have Invis, and just be aware of what's around you. As you can see, running down one of these scars that Velious left, you can see the entrance to TOV right here, and outside it's Zontalak. Very easy to avoid aggro. Just have Lev and run along as high as you can for the zoning. If he's up, doesn't tend to stay up because he does drop stuff people are after, like a Sleeper's Tomb Key, I think. Otherwise, you're going to go down to the other scar, and that will give you the port into Dragon Necropolis. Otherwise, it kind of looks very similar to a lot of the other zones so far. We've had our fill of the ice zone. This is pretty much the last one now, but it is just very similar to, say, Eastern Way, so Great Divide. But the zoning to TOV is cool. Zontalak's cool. I like him. He's a cool dragon. But anyway, next we're going to have a look at Dragon Necropolis, which kind of, as it stands, it is a dragon graveyard, which ominous, and it kind of sort of is, but it's different. Then again, we've seen it in this expansion. It gives us a little bit of variety. Together you can just click on one of these plimps that will take you into a Dragon Necropolis. Now this zone, not hugely big, but one you have to be very, very wary of, because there's lots of traps, and those traps spawn a few mobs, and again, very quick to get overwhelmed in this zone when you're traveling through to get to the raid target. It's also where you come to hand in your Sleeper's Tomb Key, and that is right here in this zone. There is the shade. It's easy to get into up above. You don't need a key for this door. You just climb up the rocks behind and drop through the hole in the wall, and that will take you up there. Avoid, like I said, a lot of the bones on the ground, because that's typically where the traps are. Give them a wide berth, and this will take you down to the dragon, the raid boss of the zone, who's very easy. He can be easily like 2-3 groups at the very, very max end. All you have to do is get a slow on it, and it's just like a pretty trivial fight, to be honest. And you will see guilds very early splitting this as many times as they can for Sleeper's Tomb Keys. and it takes you right down in the tunnel. There is the dragon. Be very, very careful. Don't stick your head out because it will aggro you. It's got really high aggro range to Zold's Landicar. You typically fight him out in this corridor. Yeah, very typical dragon fight. Nothing too difficult there. And now to Vicians. No, not this one. The new one. That's better. Now, I'm not going to spend too long on this one because I will produce a full video breaking everything down because it's a big zone with a lot going on. But pretty much you've got the two wings, the west wing. You'll be coming here for some armor, certainly on your tanks because it's the highest AC and it drops for Dragon Faction. And if you're not KOS to Vician, you won't be KOS in this wing. Over to the other side is the halls of testing, where you will be KOS, and because you're supposed to test your devotion to the dragon cause. And there lies Dozakar, who's rumored to have created the Sleeper with another unnamed dragon, who knows. And then to the north, where everyone's KOS, because this is the secret area that the dragons like to keep to themselves, and no one's allowed in other than dragons. And that's guarded by Arianar. There he is, big dragon, very similar to Sontalak. The old dragons that are knocking around, Fleshlak. The red dude here as well. And the best thing about these dragons is they're all kind of rooted, so it makes for a little bit of a different fight because they won't chase after you, but they will summon you. And over to the north is where the Lord and Ladies are, and obviously the tiny little zone to Mischief. Not in Great Divide, don't believe that, that's wrong. Yeah, around these corridors to my favourite dragon, your favourite dragon, everyone's favourite dragon, Lady Nev, the best fight in Velious. Not really. That's pretty much, you know, all the kind of is very brief run through of TLV. There's a lot more to it. Obviously you got Vulak who spawns down that corridor as well. He's not up because the Lords and Ladies are up on here. But what I wanted to come here for is to check out the Plane of Mischief. Some may argue that the Plane of Mischief is the best bind for casters in the game because you can click the tree in Cobalt Scar where you can get a port to pretty much anywhere, and Mischief is a difficult zone to get to. You can typically only get in on a raid night, so yeah, maybe bind here if you're a caster. I'll certainly be binding mine casters here. It does drop some items that are very interesting. They're very odd. It's a zone like no other, with tricks, with traps, with all kinds of things going on. Now unfortunately this version that I'm running through is the second or even maybe the third. I forget how many updates Mischief kind of had over the time, but the mobs will be different on in Velious. They will not be these mobs knocking around. It's a very different zone and kind of what they made it, but it's still one of my favorite zones. There's no other zone like it in EverQuest, I don't think, at this stage. They had a lot of fun with this zone, to be honest. It was like, okay, what ideas have you got for make a zone as wacky and crazy as possible, and let's throw them in. Yeah, there's a typical hedge maze, okay, fair enough. There's an upside down room, that's really cool. And then there's this room as well, one of my favourite areas in Velious, and that is the theatre room in Mischief. If you've never seen it, check it out. It's a lot of fun because there's a puppet show, which actually runs. You can kill the puppets, and I recommend doing so if you've got a good group. You can get them down in the. I don't want to spoil it. It's fun. And there's this section as well, the Alice in Wonderland section, which I used to think in 2000, like before we really even had, before there was maps, I was like, am I getting smaller? Are the rooms, or is it the rooms getting bigger? Well, maps these days kind of show that, there's no manipulation with like the character. It's very much the rooms get bigger, the scale of the rooms get bigger, make everything else look tiny, which is pretty cool though. Not many games were doing this kind of thing at the time, and it sort of reminds me of kind of that Wizard's Tower in World of Warcraft, But all things can, where they kind of took this idea and kind of ran with it a bit more, and a bit more modern, modern engine as well. I forget what it's called. It's going to annoy me now. It's in southeast of the of Stormwind, Medivh's castle. Reminds me very much of the stuff you see in that dungeon, all the crazy stuff that can happen, like the chess game and whatnot. Because that's kind of what it is. It's a fun zone. You can get good items. You can get the resist flowers as well. That you form a deck of cards, and that lets you create flowers, which give you resists. Resists are always good as well. So there will be people, boxers, spending time here trying to get their flowers to sell, because they are pretty sought after. But again, not many people come to this zone. One, because of difficulty in getting here, and two, because of how complex it is. You've got to know your way around, otherwise you're going to get lost several times over. The map helps, but it's not fantastic. You've got to know like what to click. Sometimes you click in a plant, sometimes you click in a book, or you click in a picture. It's not the most straightforward. There's a path you could be running down, and there's just an invisible wall. It's it's a tricky zone. Spend some time in it. You kind of get used to it after a little while, but it's not easy, and there is bristle brains thrown. I will try and do a video on it. Again, like I said, it's difficult because this is the 2.0 version. I'll see what I can do, if I can dig out the original zone files and see if I can use them to make a video, because it is such a fun zone and it is so complex. I do think a video on it will be worthwhile. A couple of last ones. There's Crystal Caverns, again, notoriously underutilized zone. It's pretty good fun, but it is difficult to navigate, unless you're coming here for a quest. A lot of people just don't. So yeah, Crystal Caverns, it's a nice dungeon. Didn't forget about Sleepers. It's not one of my favourite zones, to be honest. It's very sky shiny in that it's big, probably unnecessarily so, and also because Sleeper will get killed on day one of a server launch, of Velious launch. It's pretty much a guarantee these days. So if you've got any ambitions of seeing the Sleeper, well, unless you've probably got high RA and a needed class to get the wardens down, you're probably not going to be seeing it anytime soon, unless you're in that one guild that will do it. Honestly, you're not missing all that much. Yeah, we lose items such as a Scepter of Disruption and a few other things like the mask and whatnot, but no big deal. You still get your primal weapons here. Not much is lost. But this is like the path, and people ask me, oh, like, what's the rundown for Sleepers to get to the Sleeper? So I'm just doing it very, very quickly here. Kind of got muscle memory from doing this. I want to say I did this on Aradun, because I was part of the Aradun launch and getting Sleeper down, and we did practice this several times, making sure we could run down all this way without aggro. Not easy to do. Sometimes, and there's always that one or two people that get aggro, and then you have to drag and wrestle them. It always happens. But Sleeper lives down in the sewer. Yeah, I don't know why they keep him in the sewer. Maybe they think he won't escape the sewer. Yeah, you're down one pipe. Don't want to know what flows through here, but the second pipe, and that will bring you to the final arbiter, who keeps a watch over where Carathim the Sleeper sleeps, and there you go. That's how you get down. Very similar to a lot of the other zones like Sky Shrine. There's not a lot really to show. And finally, we've had the large expansive cities of Sky Shrine and Kale, and yeah, Frigidity is complete opposite. It's compact, it's small, it's everything those other zones aren't. It's a nice little town with everything nearby. I really like this city. It's probably one of my favorites. Everything's close by. You can go to the library and listen to the lore master tell you all about the history of the Coldanes if you want to. Yeah, and that's, I mean, I'd say interesting if you're interested in the lore, but that's where you can go. A lot of the quest turning, spell turning stuff's all in there as well. yeah, fun little zone. Favorite city in Velious. Maybe if you're a large race like an ogre or a troll, think about getting in illusion, because some of the doors are very, very small, and in the back leads to Icewall Keep. I'm going to quickly do the run that we do to the Dane fight spot, because the Dane must be slain for the peace to be maintained. I think my record on killing Dane in one day was like 6 or 7 Dane kills. It was something crazy, because people spawn Dane all the time as part of the shore quest in open world and just leave him up, and that's crazy to me. Like, why would you do that unless you don't know that it spawns the Dane, and that spawnable drain drops the same loot table, and some of the Dane stuff is pretty good. But this is the spot where you fight him, and it's the banish spot where he drops you down, so that's where you want to do it. Dane can be split from his little friends as well, but I mean, they're not hard. We just can usually just pull them all down and pick them off one by one. And there is actually a zone out down here. It's kind of hidden away, but you can get back to the Great Divide down here. There's a few rares that spawn down here, nothing particularly good though. You follow it around, you'll come across a tiny little hole in the ice. There we go. You drop down, and it's going to take me a minute to remember which way what I'm looking for. No, it's not down here. Don't want to get stuck with that frozen cube. Ah, there we go. There's the little tunnel hidden away, and that will take you to some naughty Kaldane dwarves that got thrown out of the city. Who knows what they did? Probably nothing good. They're outcasts, and they live there. And we carry on down, and there's our zone out. So there we go, a very quick run through of the zones that you'll be seeing very soon on Oakwind in Velious. Like I said, very white, very bright. Adjust your gamma, because it's very different than the dark dinginess of Kunak, and that's so good to get that change. Next up, like I said, the next video is going to have me diving into some of the raids that you'll be doing in Velious. There's loads of them. You know, like I said, your raid calendar from Kunak is maybe about an hour of Kunak raids at the very, very most, and maybe an hour, 2 hours with the Kunak Dragons, VS, and into VP. Now there's going to be multiple days where you are not going to be getting out early. They're going to be very, very full. There is a lot to do, and that's a theme that will continue for a little while in Locklin with Xfal and SSRA and so on. And Planes of Power, the first few weeks are very, very busy trying to get everyone flagged. So it is a theme. It is when EverQuest certainly kind of switches to becoming more raid focused. Keep an eye out for that video. Let me know down below your thoughts. Are you looking forward to Velious here? I certainly am, and I'm beyond waiting for the bow offer port when Velious launches. So as ever, I'm the Brick Knock, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.